Weight loss drugs like Ozempic are taking the world by storm. People are going to be eating less meat, and the implications for animals are huge. GLP-1 drugs like Ozempic were originally approved to treat diabetes back in 2017, but in 2021 they were approved for chronic weight management. People taking these drugs consume between 20% and 40% fewer calories. GLP-1s are already being used by more than 1 million people in the UK, and more than 15 million people in the US. We're about to see a massive reduction in calorie intake occurring in a portion of the population who eats a disproportionately large amount of meat. So, how many animals are GLP-1s going to save? There's a couple of relevant things to estimate here. First, how many people are going to be using GLP-1s, and second, how much will they reduce their meat intake? It's estimated that GLP-1s are currently being used by about 6% of Americans and about 4% of people in the UK, but that number is rising rapidly. GLP-1 use almost doubled in the UK between 2024 and 2025, while use in the US increased over 700% between 2019 and 2023. UBS estimates 30% year-on-year sale growth for GLP-1s, and JP Morgan estimates that by 2030, these drugs will be being used by 9% in the US. Beyond that, a much larger group of people could start using GLP-1s as well. As of 2022, the World Health Organization estimates that worldwide 1 in 8 people are obese, and more than twice that number are overweight. Meanwhile, globally, use of GLP-1s is far less than 1% of the population currently. Now, a lot will depend on how affordable and accessible these drugs get in different parts of the world, but it just happens that over 60% of the world's obese population are in high or upper middle income countries. As a low bar, we can take UBS's estimate of 40 million GLP-1 users worldwide by 2029. As a more speculative and longer-term estimate, this might get to 80 million by 2035, which would still only be 10% of the world's obese population. So next, how much meat will they cut back? This study by researchers from Cornell found that households with at least one GLP-1 user reduced their grocery spending by 5% within 6 months. Consumption of some foods fell more than others, with the sharpest declines observed in processed and calorie-dense foods, including a 10% decline in savoury snacks. That sounds like a lot of meat products to me. Bear in mind this is household spending data, so the effect is diluted amongst many household members. Numerator further reports that year-on-year spending for meat specifically declined by between 10 and 20% for GLP-1 users versus non-users. Consumption of dairy decreased by between 5 and 10%, and consumption of fish by between 3 and 5%. Okay, so how many animals is that? Well, Animal Charity Evaluators estimates the average number of animals killed for food per person per year at 105. But this is simply the total number of animals killed for food divided by the total number of people who are not vegan, and therefore we'd probably want to increase this simple average for the proportion of the population who are obese. Not only are they consuming more calories in general, but consumption of meat specifically has been linked with increased risk of obesity. So let's add 25% here and say 131 animals per year. So we've got some plausible values for each of the key variables here. We're expecting between 40 million and 80 million people to be using GLP-1s within the next decade. Each of those people is probably killing at least 105 animals per year, probably more like 131 animals per year. Each of them is going to consume between 10 and 20% less meat, between 5 and 10% less dairy, and between 3 and 5% less fish. Putting all of this together, we can estimate that GLP-1s are going to save at least 114 million animals per year, and at the high end of the estimate, as many as 479 million animals per year. A large portion of this number is referring to wild-caught fish, so looking at farmed animals only, GLP-1s are going to save between 20 million and 85 million per year. However you look at it, GLP-1s are going to be a huge win for animals, sparing millions of them every year. We think a lot about how to get people to go vegan or to eat less meat, or about the success of alternative proteins. But then along come GLP-1s, a technology that just reduces overall appetite and calories consumed, and saves animals as a result. Most of us can't really affect the development of these technologies, but here's 3 things that you can do for animals right now. Number 1, go and give to farm kind. Number 2, go and take action on the Humane League's Fast Action Network. And number 3, share this video on social media so that more people see pro-animal content. This is Bryant, PhD. Cheers.